you could have a budget of let's say $10,000, you could have a budget of $1,000,000. So a product manager is someone with whatever constraints that they have tries to solve that problem.
Every time I have to bring up the vision and say that this is what we are trying to build, because I see a lot of discussions that keep happening where it's completely out of sight of what you want to get to, but people want to do it because it's fun to do it, right? It's the next flashy thing which we want to build for the product.
One thing which I found out was no one teaches product management. Like if you go to a school, there's no product management major. If you go like to an MBA, there's no product management major, right? Hey everyone, welcome to our podcast, Everything Product. In this podcast, we talk about latest technology insights and product management concepts. I'm Srianth. I work as a product manager at JP Morgan.
I'm Sid Saladi. I work as a product manager for Best Buy.
Hi everyone, this is Phani. I'm a product manager at a startup.
Awesome. So today we have a very interesting topic, and probably it's a simple or a general term that many of you guys may be hearing. That is, what is product management? So we'll share our experience, insight into what in general product management is, as well as talk about some of the key aspects of product management, and also go into deep into different types of product management. So if you guys are wondering which is the right fit for you, and if you are an aspiring product manager, so please watch this video. So with that being said, let's dive into the topic. Sidhu, I'll get started with you. So what is product management in simple terms, and how you can explain that to our viewers?
Yeah. So maybe I'll start with a quick phrase. I would say product management is a art rather than a science. So the reason why I would say is, right, there's no one form or shape where you do product management, right? And the type of product management changes by the stage of the product and also the size of the company. When it's a startup, it's a different way you do it. When it's a mid-sized company, it's a different way. When it's an enterprise company, it's a different way. Maybe let's talk about the general terms of what product management is. I'd say a product manager is a person who defines success for a product, right? So what does that mean, defining success, right? So he comes up with a vision for the product and he kind of puts together a roadmap to get to that vision. That might be a multi-year roadmap or a 6-month roadmap or a 1-year roadmap, but this roadmap are basically helps anybody play the cards to get to that place where the vision is defined. So that's what product management, I would say, in general is. And product managers, there's a lot of misnomer saying people call product managers as the CEO of a product. So product managers, I would say, are not basically managing a team, right? So they work with engineering partners, they work with UX, and they also work with business to basically coordinate and get to the point where they create some value to their customers. So they are advocates of the customers. So that's how I would say define it in a very, very simple, basic way.
That's awesome. Funny, I know you are a product manager yourself, and you worked in various leading companies. Uh, can you share your insight into this?
Definitely, Srianth. So the way I would put a product manager role is, I don't know, I'm thinking of this for as first time, a structure giver. So if you think of a product manager, right, he or she is someone who comes to a place which is either at a chaos or which doesn't have a clear understanding of what they want to do, and that person comes and gives a structure to it. Let me give an example. So let's say someone is having some problem. Okay, some customer is having some problem, and then we want to build products on how to solve for that. You can solve it in like 100 different ways. You could have a budget of let's say $10,000, you could have a budget of $1,000,000. So a product manager is someone with whatever constraints that they have tries to solve that problem, and that's the structure that they're giving it to the team.
The way I see product managers are kind of navigating that product, taking that idea to reality, like how a captain takes or navigates that ship from source to destination. So that's how I'm also seeing, obviously collaborating with so many folks and all that stuff. And I think we three of us probably started as an engineers, and I think we were all aspiring product managers. Now we all work as product managers. Can you share a little bit insight into how you guys figured out that you wanted to go into product management field?
I can start. It always goes back to like inspiration, right? I think the first time I got to hear about, or one of the first times I got to hear about the product management role is because of Sundar Pichai. So I got to hear about some Indian who's doing something and something about Google Chrome and then finally becoming the CEO of a company. I'm like, where do I want to be? If I want to envision myself being somewhere there, what is one of the roles that would give you that opportunity? Is product management. You get to think a lot about the products. You get to think a lot about how you would want to like build, structure it, and finally deliver it. So that was one of my early influences.
Would you say Google Sundar Pichai is your role model for product management?
Used to be, but I still like him. But he used to be one of my role models. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely read some of the success stories, especially the way he took Android to a different next level. Without him, I don't think we would have probably an awesome Google Pixel 7 phone and all.
Yeah.
Nice. Sita, do you have any insight to add to that?
Yeah, I
And
think
also share your experience as well, how you landed here.
yeah. So for me, right, so it was like even growing up, right, I was kind of curious putting things together, and also that's why I was like always wanted to be an engineer where I build things with my hands and all. But as I started doing the engineering job, right, so there was some constraints against what you are actually doing and what you aspire to do. So you are more on the execution side rather than strategy. So what excites me and what motivates me is like a lot of strategy side, right, understanding what the problems are, customer needs are, ideation and so on and so forth. So I think that drove me to figure out like what product managers are and what the product management role is. That's where I started exploring and taking more responsibilities on the product side in the job which I do. That's where I transition into more of product management. But the core motivation was to be in that strategy side, and getting an to a product, I'd say.
Yeah, I think I also have a very similar story. So when I started, I also started as a software engineer. I felt like I was just working on the requirements that were given without understanding that end to end or big picture, how my solution is going to impact. And even in my early days after MBA, I felt like I was doing a lot of tactical and operational stuff, which was not strategic enough. So that's when I figured out, okay, product management is a space where I get to define something. Get to define the strategy to achieve that, and also the see the impact of that being used by the customers. So that's what I mean. I think a very similar story that I have.
Yeah, so one more story which I would want to add is, right, while I was doing my MBA, right, there was a class called New Product Design. So the whole concept of the class was basically you'll actually start with an idea and end up with a product at the end of the class. So you are actually forced to do and go through all the different stages of a product development cycle, and you are actually doing a product. So that was a very interesting journey where you are kind of thinking of something, and then at the end of that course you are having something which you built yourself. So that was a very exciting journey for me, and that also opened up a lot of my curiosity into trying to figure out what product management is, how can I get my hands dirty into product management and this role.
It
Yeah.
actually also goes back to what do you want to become down the line. So many people have asked me, right? Hey, is product management the right profession, or do you want to stay in that role? I don't know, honestly. So at this point of your life or your career, what is the thing that excites you the most? Like, do you want to be driving products? I'll tell one more thing, right? So let's say you become a CEO of a startup, okay, down the line. Product might not excite you because product is just one part of a company. Because you might be thinking way beyond a product once you reach that level. Okay, you're thinking about a lot of human aspects of things, you're thinking about like funding aspects of things, etc. So at that point, product is just one aspect. So as we grow, that might change. But right now, what excites us is product management.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
I'll ask a question, right? Like, what is the most difficult part of being a product manager or of being in product management?
Yeah, I think it varied for me. So when
Okay.
I was in my early stages, um, navigating people used to be one of the toughest thing, because there's always people who have like very strong opinions about certain things, which is really good, because you get all different perspectives and then you finally get to make a decision. But it's very tough to navigate people who are very strong in terms of opinions. But as I grew in my career, what I understood is, at the end of the day, it is a point of view. You need to talk to everyone and then finally get everyone to a certain place. As a product manager, that's really important. That's what I started doing. And then as you grow, certain point of times ambiguity might be very complex. Certain point of times, probably defining a vision when you have no clue about a product might be the tough thing. Or sometimes juggling between 100 different things and then doing that context switch might be the tough thing. So it varied for me a lot.
Yeah. Maybe one other thing, right? Like, I think anybody looking at this video, right? Like, ambiguity and uncertainty is like a constant thing in product management, where you might think you have everything and all the clarity, but it's not the case always, right? And you have to keep up with uncertainty. Sometimes you're like very busy, running behind meetings, and not able to get everything done in a day. And sometimes you're relaxed and you don't have that much of things to do, and so on and so forth. So I think it's different every day. Anybody who likes that ambiguity and uncertainty would maybe love product management.
No one defines a solution for a product manager. It's like product manager has to figure out, navigate through, get people, like as Phani said. And one thing which I also want to add, like which I've experienced early in my career, was the skill of influencing people without authority. So
Yeah.
as a product manager, you work with so many different teams, so many different folks, and they won't even report to you. So it's very hard if you don't earn trust with them to influence them to work for you, to agree on a solution that you're building. Because for instance, a product manager may be working with a UX design team, right? For that, you need to make sure they are bought into the idea that you are planning to develop, so they can develop wireframes and allocate necessary bandwidth to support you. If we cannot influence them, then our product is not going to move forward. So that's one of the toughest things which I saw in earlier career. I think over a period of time, I feel like I improved, but obviously there's still an opportunity for improvement there.
Yeah.
It is actually a good thing, because you don't have to deal with any of their paperwork of like approving their leaves, approving their
That's right.
quarterly reviews, etc. But you get to utilize all of their capabilities to build the products that you want to build.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, that's right. So
So they
even
had a
I
point.
always feel like it's more like a storytelling role rather than anything, because you basically always are showing a set of artifacts to people to convince them to build something, or to fund the project, or to market it, or to sell it, right? So it's almost like you showing up a roadmap, or a requirements document, or at least a plan of how to build this, and also metrics to convincing people to get things done by them. So I think it's that's the hardest part, right? You're not managing anybody, but you still have to convince people to work towards that goal which you set for that product.
Yeah. Also, I want to double click on one thing that you said, Siddhu. I think you defined like product management is more of an art than science. One thing which I found out was no one teaches product management. Like if you go to a school, there's no product management major. If you go like to an MBA, there's no product management major, right? Like there are other majors like business analytics, operations, supply chain, that kind of stuff, where probably you can build that foundation skills to become a supply chain manager or something like that. Where for versus product manager, it's all about problem solving, solving customer problems, building solutions. That's one thing which I found. Do you guys agree with that, or do you guys
Those
have any
times
other
have
additional perspective?
those times have passed, Srinath, already. So those were the times when we were in our MBAs. Now the product management courses are everywhere.
I'm
Yeah.
just referring to the MBA
Just
major, but
MBA.
not like product school and all that stuff.
No, no,
Yeah.
no. There are MBA, like MBA specializations for product management nowadays.
Okay. Yeah, but
Okay.
I still say they are like just teaching frameworks, but frameworks will only get you till a point, right? So it's a muscle which you have to flex, right? So one example is there are 10 different frameworks to prioritize, but the prioritization varies by the stage of the product and also the size of the company. There are a lot of variables, and you basically have to know what you want to and what tool you have to use. So it's otherwise it's just a mess of frameworks which you have to pick from.
So what
And
you're saying is, don't take framework and go and apply to the problem. Take the problem and apply to the framework, right?
Yeah, framework should help you rather than you helping the framework getting popular, right?
Yeah, no, that's a
I
good
mean,
point.
typical MBAs or like any courses, right? All they basically do is accelerate you. So if that course was not there, you would have taken, let's say, a few months to understand all of those frameworks. But
Yeah.
all MBA does is dumps you a lot of courses, dumps you a lot of like consulting programs and stuff where you have to do it within a short period of time. So you get to learn a lot of things much more faster. But beyond
Yeah.
that, unless and until you're doing a real life product or real life initiative, you're not gonna get to see the actual complexities within that.
Yeah, I also feel
Yep.
that the repetitions are very important, right? So first time when you maybe go from an idea to product, you'll do a lot of mistakes, but you'll learn along. And second time you'll get better. Third time you'll get even better. And the 10th or 15th time you do it right, you know exactly what cards to play and how to do it and what tools to use to get to that place in a much efficient way. So that's why you learn more in the job rather than studying something for product management.
Mm. Yep.
Yep. All right. Now, let's go into the key aspects of product management, right? Like as a product managers, have to perform various activities and work with so many people. I'm sure there are a number of key work streams that they own in order to launch a product, right? I think for our viewers, it will be very helpful if you can share some insights into what are the general responsibilities, key aspects, so they can probably enhance their skill before going into that career. Uh, Funny, maybe I'll start with you. If you want to share some insight into the aspects of product management, um, can you share any insight into that?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think that also varies based on the stage you are at in your product management career. But let me start with someone who is at early stages, right? The way I would say your primary goal should be delivering a backlog, which is prioritized in a consistent way. And you need to make sure you have a strong customer point of view within that. That should be your primary goal. Obviously, like you'll be looking into stakeholder management, building the relationship with your engineers, making sure you track your initiatives and track the data after that, etc. And as you progress, let's say you're a senior product manager, then you're thinking a little bit beyond that. You need to spend time uh, less on the execution, but more towards strategic thinking. How do you build a backlog for multi quarters? How do you make sure to drive your stakeholders and get to a stronger roadmap? That should be your focus. And beyond that, you're probably thinking of like much broader initiatives or probably like managing people, etc. So I think it varies as you grow through.
Do you want to share any insight into that, Sidhu, key on the key aspects of product management?
Sure, yeah. I normally have something stuck on my wall every time, right? When I want to go back to the basics of what product management is, right? So that's where I would divide that into four major aspects, right? Whenever you're building any product, I think we could divide that into these aspects. The first one is the problem identification phase, where you try to figure out what the problem is. The second is solutioning phase, where you are ideating, prototyping, and so on and so forth. And then there's implementation or execution, and there's maintenance of that, right? So as a product manager, you are basically part of all of these stages. Sometimes you are involved more, sometimes you're involved less, right? So that's where your your place as a product manager changes as the product goes through all of these cycles. So I'd say at a problem phase, right, it's more trying to empathize with the user, trying to figure out what the user problems are, what the pain points are, doing market research, doing industry research. And what does a product manager do there? The product manager does voice of customer, right? Interviews. The product manager defines personas. The product manager understands the user journey of a persona, and all of these things, right? Problem identification, hypothesis, and all of that. Then you basically, like, you have gathered so much of information. You're still in the problem phase. The next phase is more like defining it, right? What is the biggest problem you can pick to create that impact or give that business value to your stakeholders? That's where you maybe dig deep and try to understand what the themes that are coming out, and all of those things, right? Then you maybe come up with a problem statement. Then you move on to the next phase, which we are talking about, the second phase, which is solutioning. In the solutioning phase, what you do is it's more about ideation, right? You can solve one problem 100 different ways, and always the first problem, the solution you get might not be the most efficient solution for that problem you're trying to solve. So you get into ideation sessions with your engineers, trying to figure out what the best solution for that is, right? Once you have the solution, waterfall way of doing it is you give it to a team and team implements it, and then you maybe release it and give it to the users and see how they react it. But more agile way of doing it is, that's where a product manager's part is very, very important, right? What you do is you try to make the smallest value possible out of the solution which you created and show it to the users. It could be a very low fidelity prototype or a high fidelity prototype. Show it to the users and get feedback to them. So the solution which you have developed for the problem might not be the right for that user, or the user might not understand what the solution is. So that's why you are reducing uncertainty. So once you get that feedback, right, that's when you say, okay, we have had a problem, we have finalized a problem, we have had a solution for that, and now also we have validated the hypothesis that this solution is solving the problem. So that's done. The second phase is done. Third is what the implementation or the execution phase is. Once all of this is done, the requirements are finalized, you give it to the product team or engineering team to basically execute on that. That's where your part comes, maybe becomes little less compared to all the other phases, because the engineering manager and UX and engineers are basically trying to churn out to get to that product or the feature which you have asked them to build. Yeah, you are still involved, where you are still gathering more insights from the users, and every time coming back and advocating for the user, saying that this is what we want to build and this is not the right way, and so on and so forth. You'll be collecting the feedback. So after that, right, the last phase is more maintenance, right? The fun part is always launching a product, right? You launch a product and customers start using it. So what happens then? So that's where another critical phase of a product manager happens, which is the success of the product. You want to build the right thing rather than building the thing right. You could build a very flashy thing, but if nobody uses it, there's no business value, no value to the users. You want people to start using it, right? That's where a product manager comes to understand what the success metrics are. Are we trending in the right direction or no? Should we make changes? Should we go back, maybe implement more features or tweak the features what we have? That's a very crucial role which a product manager plays. So overall, right, so this is all the process which you would follow. But I think at every step, what you're trying to do is you're trying to reduce the uncertainty of the success of a product.
So, if I want to summarize that in one simple term, basically what you're defining is a product development life cycle where you figured out, you plan first. As a part of that, all the research activities go. Then you go and develop, then implement, launch, and monitor, and continue to do that. I mean, until we build the best product possible, which probably there'll always be continuous
Yeah,
improvement.
that's right.
So in this journey, I want to hear from both of you. Maybe Fanny, I'll start with you. I know there are a number of different activities, work streams as a product manager whom it needs to perform during this different stages, right? So, what are some of the, I mean, common challenges that we may face, and maybe the toughest work streams? And what are some of the key things that you would give for anyone out there? Like any tips or tricks to navigate that through?
So yeah, let's go with the same thought process what Sidhu was telling, right? So at different stages of the product development life cycle, there could be different challenges. So let's start with the initial phase. You're trying to understand what you want to build the product. You're trying to reach out to the customers. You're trying to do some industry analysis and figure out what exactly you want to build. There could be several times where you might get different points of view from customers, or there could be scenarios where you get certain data from the customers, but you're unable to validate the same thing with the data. So it's a very tricky situation that you're not 100% confident that this is the feature that you want to build, but you will still have to go ahead and then prioritize the feature, spend some cycles, and then figure out whether that is good or not, and that's fine. So ambiguity, going back to what we have talked earlier, is good. So come up with a strong hypothesis to say, hey, this is exactly what I want to try, and then build. And have a strong point of view, and it could be wrong, and be open to be proven that you're wrong. And another biggest challenge that I typically see is stakeholder management. So as a product manager is a thinker, so all he tries to do for a team is think through the solutions and then come up with the problem solution for a problem that the team wants to solve. So you will be always facing with questions. Whatever you say, people will be like, okay, why that, why this, why not that, etc. Try to pose the questions to yourself before you actually go to stakeholders, because that way you're preparing yourself to all kinds of simple questions like that, and it makes you feel more confident about what you're trying to propose.
Yeah, stakeholder management, I think, is one of the most important as you navigate through this. I mean, you work with so many cross-functional teams, right? So that's we cannot be probably we need to be a great collaborator and have good relationships, because it's not always about work. In order to get things done from so many people, you need to be a good stakeholder first.
Yeah.
Say that, do you
Uh,
want to add any insight into some of the challenges that you might have faced?
Yeah, so I think one prominent challenge which I face is, right, whenever we are trying to define a problem, a lot of times engineering teams tend to move very fast into solutioning. So even though I might sound like a broken record, I keep saying let's focus on the problem first. Let's focus on understanding the problem. If we don't understand the root cause of what the problem is, we are just doing a band-aid fix to whatever the problem is, right? We are not doing a complete fix, and we are doing a disservice for ourselves. So I don't blame anybody, because when I was an engineer, when I was given a problem, the first thing I would do is jump into solutions, right? How can I solve this? What can I put together to quickly churn out a feature? So I think that's the duty of a product manager, trying to focus all the efforts towards first trying to understand the problem, and then maybe getting into solutioning when it is the right time. So that's one thing which I keep facing. The second one is, people know that there is a vision for this product, and everybody might have participated in defining the vision for it, but time to time people keep forgetting the vision. Every time I have to bring up the vision and say that this is what we are trying to build, because I see a lot of discussions that keep happening where it's completely out of sight of what you want to get to, but people want to do it because it's fun to do it, right? It's fun to solution it's fun, it's the next flashy thing which we want to build for the product, right? So I think it is sometimes not comfortable, you every time bringing that and asking people to see like this is what we want to focus on, but that's what the product manager has to do. So ultimately he's responsible for the success of the product, and engineering teams and others are responsible for the execution of it, right? Their job is done at that point, but when people don't use it or the users don't use it, that's on the product manager, right? Like, so I think that's where you have to champion everything or everybody around that vision, that's it. And the third one is most common, right? Influencing without authority. So how can you tell that story so that other people are inspired to do the work for you? And sometimes you have to build that internal relationships where things which don't happen through discussions might happen through your personal connections, right? So I think the more connected product managers work better and get things done better, rather than kind of disconnected product managers.